Welcome to the 2021 annual meeting of the New England Museum Association. And what better way to start than by honoring excellence in our field? This year's NEMA Excellence Awards recognize individuals in our region for outstanding museum practice. Nominated by their peers, the awardees demonstrated passion, commitment, and vision in their work for and with New England's museums. Their work makes us better as a community of museum professionals and as a field.
Like all museums, when the pandemic hit, we had to pivot to a virtual format. Here in Concord, that effort was led by Allison Schilling, who at the time was our manager of public programs and happened to be our youngest staff member and most recently hired. The result, 24 History at Home e-blasts, resulting in over 100,000 substantive engagements with the general public, and 56 virtual forums that attracted close to 20,000 viewers. Allison worked long hours, taught herself these skills, and calmly remedied the technology when inevitably it failed. In the spirit of Ralph Waldo Emerson, her example encouraged us all. Never mind the ridicule, never mind the defeat, Emerson counseled. Up again, old hearts. The premise of our newly designed permanent galleries is to see Concord at the center of two revolutions, the political and military revolution of 1775 and the social and literary revolution of the Transcendentalist period. Simply put, Allison Schilling was at the center of a revolution that has forever transformed the Concord Museum. And for that, my colleagues and I are honored to nominate her for this award.
I'm so grateful and honored to be recognized by NEMA as one of this year's Excellence Award recipients. Since the beginning of the pandemic, I've converted existing programs to virtual formats and created new programming for adult and family audiences to engage with while at home. The success of these programs is entirely due to my creative, hardworking, and talented colleagues here at the museum, who have been the subject matter experts and on-air talent for gallery talks, a master class, videos from iconic places around town like Walden Pond and the North Bridge, and over 50 virtual forums. Museums play an important role as centers for building and maintaining community through meaningful, transformative experiences. The pandemic has taught us that, when used correctly, technology can be part of that effort. Thank you to everyone at NEMA for this recognition and for all of the good work that you do.
Chana was appointed President and Chief Executive Officer at Boston Children's Museum in 2010. She is a Chief Strategist, a fundraiser, and is a respected national leader in interactive family-focused exhibitions, programs, research, and collaborations. Under her tenure, Boston Children's Museum introduced New England's first groundbreaking access program for families receiving benefits, which is now replicated across the Commonwealth. She leads by example and inspires her staff to do the same. Carol Chana epitomizes an exemplary supporter, role model, leader, team member, and mentor for peers in the New England Museum community and beyond. Congratulations, Carol, on this well-deserved honor.
Hi, I'm Carol Charno, President and CEO of Boston Children's Museum. Thank you so much, NEMA, for this wonderful award. I'm very honored. And I also want to thank you for all the support that you've given to museums during this incredibly challenging time. I'd like to dedicate this Excellence Award to my incredible staff. Their creativity, their ingenuity, their resilience, their dedication, and their sheer love for the kids and families we work with is just completely remarkable. And I see my role as a CEO to create space and to provide resources for them to do their best work and to be able to help them realize their vision for the Children's Museum. I'm really glad that during the pandemic we've been able to keep open and provide an excellent experience for the kids and families that visit us in the museum, but also to be available to others through our online work, distributing kits and providing all kinds of resources to families through community and state agencies. So thank you again for this wonderful award. I really appreciate it, and have a great conference.
Hi, My name is Suanna Crowley, and I'm an interdisciplinary scientist and researcher and museum consultant in the Boston area. I'm here to celebrate Doug Stark. Doug Stark has been my friend for 25 years, and I've had the privilege of watching his museum career grow from its very beginnings. I'm so pleased to have nominated him for the General Excellence Award, and I'm so glad that he's being recognized by the organization that he has dedicated so much time to as a member and as part of the leadership team. Doug is dedicated to sports and sports history. He has carved out a wonderful career interpreting and examining the history of sports and its impact on our human experience. He likes to build big things, whether it's another museum building or his next book, and he really enjoys being a part of the museum community that is celebrating him today. So I'm very glad to have this opportunity to celebrate Doug, to cheer for him, and to wish him well in his next many decades of career. Thanks.
Thank you, Suanna, for nominating me, and to NEMA for this wonderful recognition of the 2021 NEMA Excellence Award. During my career in sports museums, it has been a privilege to communicate the history of America through the lens of sports history. The compelling stories of our champions, both on and off the fields of play, offer insight into the story of America: democracy, immigration, urbanization, globalization, courage, and resiliency. Through public forums, community engagements, and new visitor experiences, I am proud that the history of sports is now more engaging, relevant, and accessible to a diverse audience. And sports plays an important role as a form of cultural expression and an agent for social change. I would like to thank all my teammates throughout the years, and I hope to see everyone on a court or a ball field soon. Thank you.
I'm Sally Redmond, President of the Duxbury Rural and Historical Society Board of Trustees. Thank you, NEMA, for choosing Erin Mcgu, our Executive Director, for your prestigious Award of Excellence. Erin is a masterful champion of diversity, inclusiveness, leadership, preservation, and outreach. She led the reimagining of one of our historic homes to focus on the sisters who lived there in the 19th century. She created an impressive virtual program using material from our archives and collections on the Cape Verdeans who worked in the town cranberry industry. She encourages and recognizes the talents of staff, members, and volunteers, and is quick to give them recognition for their contributions. She revived our lands committee that oversees 150 acres and set up a long-term capital program of repairs and improvements for our five historic properties. And in answer to the pandemic, she partnered with town businesses and organizations, installing large storytelling panels of the history of the spot they now inhabit, making the whole town a museum. So hats off to you, Erin, and hats off to NEMA.
Hello, I'm Erin Mcgu, Executive Director for the Duxbury Rural and Historical Society. It's my privilege to introduce you to our organization, which has historic house museums, historic structures, an archival library, and also holds land in conservation. It is our privilege to be one custodian of our area's history. Thank you to our colleagues and volunteers, especially our incredible staff. You make my work possible. Thank you as well to Sally Redmond and the Board of Trustees for their nomination. And thank you to the New England Museum Association for the honor of this award. I'm really touched. It's a privilege to be a part of the museum community.
Hi, my name is Becky Bollier, and I'm the director of the Florence Griswold Museum here in Old Lyme, Connecticut, and it is my pleasure to represent my colleagues in our nomination of Julie Garvin Riggs for a NEMA Excellence Award. Julie doesn't just inspire people through the artwork that she creates, she encourages everyone to find that artistic spirit within themselves. From working with Alzheimer's patients, to outreach opportunities to the elderly, to those who are learning English as a second language, to those that are in underrepresented communities, Julie finds a way to make art a central language that everyone can learn from. I hope that you will come to the museum and get to experience the awe-inspiring work that we do here with Julie, and that you will be able to see for yourself what an incredible colleague she is and contributor to the art field. Thank you.
Thank you to my colleagues for this amazing opportunity and for always being supportive of my programming. There is a shortage of kindness and empathy in the world today, and I try to use those two things as much as I can in my teaching to help the people that I'm working with who might be in fight or flight mode. Women with cancer, children with cancer, battered women, homeless shelter, you name it. They really benefit from an empathetic based learning where the focus is on the process and not the outcome. And I really see the benefits of it daily. And I'm so thankful to be able to do this soul work. My mother always said when we were children, if you swim in a sea of kindness, your ripple effect will be beautiful. I firmly believe that. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Chris Thierry, and I'm Chief Marketing Officer at Old Sturbridge Village. It is with great pleasure that I nominate Marianne Gubala to this prestigious NEMA Excellence Award. So just ask Marianne was a common phrase that I heard when I first started at Old Sturbridge Village. And asking Marianne could be anything from, best practices in social media or communications to what's the pulse of our membership and general audience. It could be for knowing what's trending in New England museums, or how to message a rain cancellation, or how to darn a sock for that matter. And most importantly, what time will the sheep be eating their afternoon meal this day? Marianne's commitment to excellence in the museum field is demonstrated through not only her deep knowledge of living history, but her daily work in the communications department. She represents Old Sturbridge Village in all of the values it embodies as the voice of our museum.
Like many museum and nonprofit professionals, I wear many hats on the job. I get to work with almost every department here at the village, including interpretation, museum education, collections and research, and retail. The majority of my time is spent in the digital realm, creating content for and managing our social media, our website, our e-news, editing videos, etc., etc. Particularly in the past year and a half or so, much of my time has been devoted to creating content for the virtual village. This project is only going to grow over the next few years. I also play a key role in the village's survey endeavors, both with our Village Insiders Panel research group and with members and visitors in general. Often you'll find me out here in the village with a camera in tow, either taking photos or videos. Soon you'll also occasionally see me out here in costume. It's great to have such a variety of tasks to do and so many unique opportunities here at the village.
Hi, I'm Neil Gordon, CEO of the Discovery Museum. It's not typical for a fundraiser to get nominated for a museum award, but Marie Beam is not your typical fundraiser. Let me tell you about some of the things that she's done. When we closed in March of 2020, Marie advocated that we pause all of our fundraising efforts out of respect for the other organizations that were working to meet basic family needs. She recognized that once we reopened that the Discovery Museum could play an important role in helping children regain a sense of normalcy. So Marie proposed and funded Free to Play, a month of free admission that served more than 4,500 people in 200 communities. Those families got a modicum of normalcy back in their lives thanks to Marie's vision. Wanting to protect the organization and our staff, Marie worked to counter the negative effects of the pandemic on the museum's bottom line. Her work resulted in us going from 30% contributed to 70% contributed revenue in 2020. We were therefore able to reopen earlier without any layoffs, and we've remained open ever since. But we did more than just tread water. Under Marie's guidance, a 6-figure Bridge to the Future campaign was fully funded by 2021. That campaign allows us to continue advancing our goals for environmental sustainability and for diversity, equity, access, and inclusion. Marie brings empathy, compassion, and a sense of community to her development work. And she also has a deep respect and admiration for the work of her colleagues. She's a trusted and relied upon part of the organization. Thank you and congratulations, Marie, from all of us.
At some jobs, it's not particularly fun to be a fundraiser. People usually don't like to talk to us at parties, and sometimes even our own organizations don't understand what we do. But this role at this time in the Discovery Museum's evolution has been just awesome. I remember meeting Neil Gordon, our inspiring CEO, for the first time. He said, "So I want to build this wheelchair accessible treehouse." And then before long, I was being paid to talk to people about one of the most fun places ever. What turns the talking into donor support, however, is being at an organization that can entertain more than a little bit of magical thinking. Neil and my colleagues at the Discovery Museum, including my amazing development team, are experts at that, seeing beyond the work of something to the difference it will make for kids and for families. Discovery Museum is all about possibilities, and with the help of our equally creative and ambitious donors, it delivers. It is a real honor and pleasure to be of service here, and I'm very grateful for this recognition.
We are so pleased to honor our friend and colleague, Laura B. Roberts, with the 2021 NEMA Lifetime Achievement Award. This honor is awarded to an individual with at least 35 years in the museum field and is based on an individual's commitment, participation, and support for NEMA, dedication to professional growth, and service as a role model or mentor who supports the next generation of museum professionals. Throughout her career, Laura has exemplified a deep and lasting commitment to NEMA as the organization's executive director, board member, scholarship supporter, advisor, and member of the NEMA 911 Rapid Response Team. As the principal of Roberts Consulting, Laura has worked with more than 180 museums and cultural organizations around the country, helping them build compelling strategic plans and strong organizations. Prior to her time at NEMA in the 1980s, she was Director of Education at the National Heritage Museum, USS Constitution Museum, and Rhode Island Historical Society, as well as Executive Director of the Boston Center for Adult Education. Laura is a founding member of the Museum Group, a national consortium of museum consultants. She volunteers her time on several cultural boards, including History Cambridge and Old Sturbridge Village, and is an adjunct faculty member at the Harvard University Graduate Program in Museum Studies, as well as the Leadership in Museum Education program at Bank Street College of Education. Her leadership in our museum association and her mentorship of countless museum professionals has had a tremendous impact on our field. Thank you, Laura, for your many contributions. Please join us in congratulating Laura B. Roberts. Laura, thank you so much for being here. And it is such a privilege to be able to honor you with the Lifetime Achievement Award from NEMA. You are joining a very august group of people, of course, that have contributed to both the field and to NEMA as an organization. So thank you for all you do. Very, very grateful for that, of course.
I can truly say it's my pleasure.
So I guess a little bit of background. Why don't you give us a little bit of your creation story? How did you first get involved in the museum field? Did you wake up one day as a little kid and say, I got to work in museums?
I did not, although I do have a memory of going to the Newark Museum with my family and not being allowed to go into the planetarium because I was too little and having to wait outside with the dinosaurs with my mother while my father and brothers went into the planetarium. It's actually my only childhood museum memory. I was an anthropology major in college, and I was working at a girls' camp in upstate New York. And on my day off, I went to the Adirondack Museum, what's now called the Adirondack Experience. And I realized that it was a cultural history museum, and it was capturing everything that I was learning as an anthropology student in 3 dimensions. And that was so much more cool and interesting than what I was learning in the classroom. And on a whim, I was sitting home in New Jersey and applied to work at Plymouth Plantation, and they accepted me and quickly trained me and slotted me into the program and put me in costume. At that point, you didn't speak in dialect. I don't know how to speak in East Anglian dialect. I still sounded like a girl from New Jersey. And I loved it. I absolutely loved it.
When was your first contact with NEMA during that whole process?
I went to a NEMA meeting when I worked at the Science Museum. And I remember when I got out of Cooperstown and I was at Rhode Island Historical Society, I went to the NEMA meeting in Newport. And the education director from the Mattatuck Museum, her name was Dorothy, and I'm very sorry, I can't remember her last name, was presenting. And she was presenting about this amazing, amazing suite of programs that she did. And I was a brand new baby museum educator, and I was totally blown away and intimidated. And I went up to her afterwards and I said, wow, how did you do that? And she said, how long have you been in your job? And I think the answer was actually 2 months. It might've been 1 year and 2 months at that point. And she said, I've been in my job for 22 years. And every year I develop a great new program. And now I have 22 programs. Right. And when you're in your job for 22 years, you'll have 22 great programs, which was a wonderful thing to hear. Pam Brusek, the director of NEMA, called me about my second week at school and said, I'm leaving and you should be director of NEMA. In the intervening years, I had served on the annual meeting committee. I had chaired the nominating committee. I eventually had been on the board.
What organization was NEMA at that time?
What kind of organization?
Yeah, what did it look like?
Well, we were in the Navy Yard, and we had just the one big room and then a secondary room in the back. And we had 3 desks in the 3 corners of the room. The office was a pit. And the wall of the office was disintegrating. The Park Service had tacked up plastic sheeting to hold the disintegrating wall in. And then we had a bookcase in front of it. And everything on the bookcase further held the wall in. It's fun to be in the Navy Yard. It was fun to have the Park Service as a landlord, but God, that office was awful.
OSHA didn't come calling, fortunately.
No, but we had this very peculiar accounting system, this one-right accounting system, which your membership record was on an index card about that big, which went onto this special board where we recorded in duplicate all of the things.
Wow.
And we would print out the bills and send one bill off to you, or maybe 2, and staple a duplicate of the bill to the card. And so membership was this huge box of these cards that we never bought because it's NEMA, right? We never bought the right holding bin for this system. So the cards were all flopping all over the place. And we have such loyal members. We had people who had 10 or 15 years worth of bills attached to their cards. The whole thing was a mess.
You've been instrumental in your post-NEMA career as an independent museum professional, helping the IMP, the IMP-PAG in NEMA, among other things. And I guess, tell me a little bit about how you transitioned into your own career as a consultant, and maybe, a little bit of like what it was like then versus now, because you've really made an impact on the world as a consultant.
And a group of my friends were creating the museum group, and they called me talking about going off and being independent. This would be the time to do it. So I did. My husband and I made the decision to both quit our jobs at the same time and decided to just see what it would be like. And we are still museum professionals. We're not vendors. Don't lump us in with the people selling you health insurance. We are museum professionals. We're just freelance museum professionals. The whole world has figured out the gig economy, right? That it makes so much more sense to rent the talent you need rather than to own it 24/7, and to get exactly who you need for the project at hand.
So Laura, shed your experience and perspective on what we have just gone through over the last 18 months. Pandemic, social justice issues, pay equity, you name it, climate change, economy. Where does this moment in time fit in your recollection, and sort of what have you advised people to do to get through it?
Yeah, that's easy, Dan. It is, of course, singular. It has no precedent. One of the things that I have been not surprised at, sobering, that I find very sobering, through the whole question about social justice and trying to become an anti-racist organization. I happen to have spent a fair amount of time in the last 2 years reading and watching history of the civil rights movement and of the struggle for equity in this country, and realized that what we've been going through is not a dislocation at all. It's a steady stream. It's been this unjust, this dangerous, and this fraught in America for a very long time. But I think that the Museums Are Not Neutral movement and the Empathetic Museum movement have both called museums to account and said, you really can't hide.
What do you see museums looking like in 5, 10, 15 years or so? Are we going to be different kinds of entities?
Right now, I'm feeling a little more optimistic. I think that we are exhibiting more of a social conscience. I think that we are doing more than just paying lip service to being accessible and welcoming and inclusive institutions. I think we are truly engaged in each of us in a struggle to figure out how museums can make the world better for everybody.
Well, Laura, I just, on behalf of NEMA and the field in its entirety, I want to thank you again, congratulate you on your terrific career. You're such a role model, a mentor to so many people, and truly you've had such an impact on this field, and we wouldn't be where we are today as an organization or as a profession without you. So many, many thanks.
Thank you. Thank you. It's very kind.
Okay. Where's my video? There we go. Well, let's give it up for Laura B. Roberts, shall we? Thank you, Laura, so much for everything. Okay, so hi everybody. I'm Dan Yaeger, the Executive Director of NEMA, and welcome to the 2021 annual meeting, the business portion of the meeting. First of all, in this era of virtual meetings, when digital spaces may substitute our physical sense of place, it's important to redirect our attention to the land we each occupy in this moment and honor the Indigenous people who have called it home. NEMA's offices, where I am now, are located in Arlington, Massachusetts, homelands of the Pawtucket and Massachusetts peoples. Wherever we are located, let us all acknowledge all Indigenous nations as living communities, their elders, both past and present, as well as future generations. NEMA recognizes that our organization and those of our members were founded within a colonizing society which caused the exclusions and erasures of many Indigenous peoples throughout New England and beyond. Thank you for helping us challenge these practices by disrupting and dismantling the ongoing legacies of settler colonialism. Okay, and so now I am going to, where am I? I'm going to share my screen once more. And we've got, here we go, the PowerPoint. Okay, cool. Okay, so now I'd like to introduce the slate of officers and board members, which was prepared by the nominating committee and chaired this year by Brenda Muniappan and approved by the full board at its meeting in September. So our slate of officers this year is for president, we have Sue Goganian. For first vice president, we have Becky Bolio. Vice president, Matt Kirkman. Treasurer, Pat Morris. And for clerk, Brooke Giovanni Evans. And for the 2021 board slate, the members, we have 3 new members coming in: Amanda Goodhart Parks, Margaret Tamulonis, and Danica Thurston, as well as renewing members Sue Goganian, Matt Kirkman, and Loren Spears. So Sue, I would like to ask you to stop sharing for a second. I'd like to ask you to call for a vote, please.
Hi, everyone. I'm Sue Goganian. Thank you to the nominating committee for all their hard work. We have a great slate. So I would like to ask for a motion to approve the slate in its entirety.
So moved.
Thank you, Larry. A second?
Second.
Thanks, Abby. All in favor? You can indicate by raising your hand or using the hand. Okay, thank you very much. I'm going to wait for this to stop moving. Okay. No. Any opposed?
Okay.
I don't see any. Okay. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. And so then now we have some bylaws updates. And this year, the NEMA Governance Committee, chaired by Cynthia Walker, recommended a change to the bylaws that allows for board meetings to be held virtually. This change was presented to the full board and approved at its June meeting. Sue Goganian will now conduct the vote of the membership on that. Oh, did we see that? I'm sorry. I'm having trouble figuring out how to share the screen and toggle between. Let me share that screen again. And the bylaw update reads as Article 4, Section 8, annual and regular meetings. Meetings of the Board of Directors may be held in person and or by means of digital conference technology or any other means of communication by which all persons participating have access to the meeting and are able to hear one another. It is encouraged that a director attend as many regular meetings in person as possible. Okay.
Okay. Thank you to the Governance Committee for all their hard work on this. It took quite a bit and we really appreciate their efforts. So now I'm going to ask for a motion to approve the change to the bylaws.
So moved. Move the change to the bylaws.
Thanks, Jim. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Pat. Is there any discussion or any questions on this? You can put it in the chat if you have a question or a comment. I don't see anything. Okay, so now I'm going to ask, and if you had your hand up for the first vote, you might want to take it down just so there's no confusion. Some of you that still have the hand symbol. Okay, so I'm going to ask for all in favor of the change to the bylaws. Please raise your hand either virtually or in reality. Thank you. Any opposed? I don't hear anything. So the motion carries. Thank you very much.
Okay, very good. And Sue, we're going to go right into your president's report.
Yes, I'm just trying to get my remarks here. So hold on one second. First of all, congratulations to all the award winners. We are so fortunate to have your talent and your expertise and your dedication in the field. Congratulations to all of you. And welcome to all of you, and thank you for your support for NEMA. Although I wish we were meeting in person, for the second year in a row, NEMA members and staff have created a terrific conference. I hope you've had the chance to reconnect with colleagues, meet new people, and learn from each other. I want to begin by thanking everyone who has made this event possible. The sponsors and the exhibitors, thank you so much for supporting us, even though the format may be challenging. You make the conference possible. The conference ambassadors, who serve a critical role in welcoming everyone. My fellow board members and our PAG chairs, who participate in a multitude of ways. The staff, who works magic to produce this event. Their creativity, intelligence, and incredibly hard work literally make this conference possible and successful. We are really lucky to have them. And finally, to all of you, because you are NEMA. We are all here because we care about museums and we want them and the people who make them meaningful and successful to thrive. The last 18 months have emphasized how far we are from that goal. The inequities that have always existed were exacerbated and exposed during the pandemic. A serious lack of diversity in boards, staff and mission, substandard wages and benefits, disregard for the health and well-being of staff, and a lack of regard for visitors are evident throughout the field. Performative statements that Black Lives Matter unsupported by any real action. Pledges to care for and support frontline staff and visitors, followed by layoffs of educators, the one group most qualified to help institutions navigate this crisis. Huge sums of money spent on DEAIJ committees and plans by museums who take no real steps to practice anti-racist hiring and programming. Boards and foundations that are happy to make statements but show no sign of supporting the action that is required to make progress. Our field is in crisis, but we have been given an enormous opportunity for real change. It will require all of us to be willing to share power and change ourselves and our institutions. NEMA made the decision several months ago to undertake an in-depth process to investigate our policies and programming through an anti-racist lens and to integrate DEAIJ into all aspects of NEMA's mission, values, and strategy. The board and staff have invested significant time into this process and are now asking the membership to join us in this work. You will soon be receiving a survey asking you to provide input on NEMA's draft value statements. Please make sure your voice is heard so that NEMA can support all of you in making museums better places to work and engage. To those trustees and foundation staff who have joined us today, I would ask you to recognize this moment and step up. Stop making carefully vetted statements with nothing behind them. Boards need to make much faster progress diversifying their leadership, institute and support anti-racist policies, and provide the resources for their institutions to fairly compensate staff and interns. Foundations should provide the general operating and multi-year funding to make that possible and streamline both the application and reporting requirements. The field as a whole should push back against these ridiculous questions about how much of an organization's funds go toward mission. We need to stop pretending that we can make museums into the community resources they should be for less money than it actually takes, and that it's okay to take advantage of people who love what they do by overworking and underpaying them. It's wrong, and it contributes to underfunding. We all deserve to be compensated adequately and to have the tools we need to do our jobs properly. To quote Voulez, houses are on fire, and instead of getting people to focus on grabbing buckets and water, we're distracting them with thoughts about how much money is being spent on the water and how much on the buckets. And God forbid any money should be spent on firefighters' wages or protective gear. If you don't read Voulez, please do. He has worked in a different nonprofit sector, but his voice is critically important to our field. We have a challenge in front of us and the chance to make museums the equitable and inclusive institutions that we all need them to be. It's time to change the museum. NEMA is ready for this challenge and needs all of you to join us. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Sue. Those are very engaging words. I'm also just noting we have Laura's watch party as one of the viewers here. This is really cool. A party within the party. Are you guys listening to this? Wave. They're probably they're celebrating Laura. They're eating Ed's food. Anyway, thank you so much, Sue. Very grateful for that. For the next couple of minutes, I would like to give you a brief overview of what's happening here at NEMA and where we are headed. Like most everyone, NEMA's year has continued to be impacted directly and indirectly by the pandemic at almost every level. At last year's annual meeting, we boldly stated that the 2021 NEMA conference would be held in person in Newport. Yet here we are again in a virtual space, an agonizing decision that occupied the attention of board and staff in the early part of this year. This on-again, off-again flavor of 2021 is something that many of us in the NEMA community shared, but I think we're all meeting this moment with a new sense of wisdom, patience, and resilience. In particular, I'm very grateful that you all have been so patient with NEMA and have continued to support your community in so many ways. This conference, for example, featured more than 50 sessions and events and has gathered 650 participants, which means we continue to serve a need for information and connection. I'm also grateful for your financial support. Many thanks to those of you who have donated to NEMA in addition to your membership dues, and to all of our sponsors, exhibitors, and business members. Your funds have allowed us to make the NEMA conference and our programs accessible to the widest range of participants, regardless of their financial situation. At this time, I'd like to recognize Scarlett Hoey, NEMA's Director of Membership and Development, for her work in this area, and Heather Riggs, NEMA's Director of Administration, for her sure hand in managing our budget and investments. Thank you both for keeping NEMA on track financially. Also, your funding is enabling us to focus in a meaningful way on some of society's biggest challenges and find ways to help our museums in the museum field meet them. As Sue so eloquently described just now, this year NEMA committed significant resources in terms of time and treasure toward developing a comprehensive strategic roadmap that centers equity and justice. We're excited to complete the first phase of the project by the end of the year, then begin to engage each and every one of you in development of an action plan. It's my expectation that in the coming year, you will see a new NEMA emerge that's more than ever responsive to your needs, more proactive in providing guidance to our field, and more centered on our field's obligation to help society become more equitable and just. Federal funding this past year has enabled us to undertake 2 initiatives that will have long-term benefit. First, in collaboration with the other 5 regional museum associations, NEMA has helped produce the Digital Empowerment Project, an IMLS-funded initiative designed to increase digital capacity in small museums. Each month since April, we've offered live-streamed webinars on topics such as digital accessibility, virtual exhibitions, video production, and more. A total of 40 webinars, all free of charge. The content lives on as recordings that can be accessed through museum-hub.org, and I encourage you to take a look. IMLS funding has also helped NEMA supercharge our leadership with the complex and urgent issue of climate change through a national leadership grant to measure the climate impact of museums. This project, which began in September, is in partnership with Environment and Climate Partners, as well as the New Buildings Institute, who will lead a comparative research study to collect and analyze energy data from a representative sample of about 150 museums around the country. This will create the first data-driven estimate of the field's energy impact on climate, which we hope will lead to greater awareness, energy savings, advocacy, and resiliency for individual museums and the field as a whole. Climate change poses an existential risk to museum facilities and their collections, a fact which is motivating us to deepen our engagement by embedding climate into NEMA's institutional culture. First, I'm very excited to report that NEMA is poised to include climate as part of its new values statement, which we'll be asking for your input beginning next week. This will memorialize our commitment to leadership and finding solutions on behalf of our museum community. Also, the NEMA Advocacy Committee adopted climate as its thematic focus for 2021-22. In support of that, Meg Winnicates, NEMA's Director of Engagement, is working with the government relations team at the American Alliance of Museums to create a more robust policy position on climate issues, which will be part of the field's advocacy portfolio as it interacts with members of Congress in the coming year. Meg and the Advocacy Committee have also compiled a list of resources and infographics you can use in your own advocacy efforts, which you can find on our website, nemanet.org, on the advocacy page. Climate change does not lend itself to easy solutions, but I know in my heart that museums can and will play a central role in helping society address it. We're among the most trusted institutions in our communities, so we have the social capital to change hearts and minds and to inspire action. Plus, the impact of climate change is a growing threat to our communities, facilities, and collections. We must act now to keep our museums viable and resilient. Thank you for joining us in these efforts. And now comes the sad part of saying farewell to colleagues who have served NEMA well, but are now retiring from their leadership positions. NEMA would like to extend a huge and heartfelt thank you to departing professional affinity gathering chairs, Amanda Goodhart Parks, who's moving to the NEMA board, Heather Rockwood, Laurie Pasteryak, Kelsey Mullen, and Tegan Kehoe. Thank you so much for your service to NEMA. I'd like to acknowledge and thank folks who are leaving the NEMA board, Christina DeRocher, Pilar Garo, Doug Perkins, and Kathy Saunders. Each has given valuable leadership and perspective to the organization, helping NEMA grow, mature, and thrive. It's been a pleasure to serve with each of you. At this time, I'd like to acknowledge the passing of Pat Nick, NEMA's very first executive director, who died a few weeks ago in Vinyl Haven, Maine. Patricia was hired by NEMA in 1976 as the organization was rapidly expanding from an all-volunteer operation to one better poised to serve a more professional museum community. Under her leadership between 1976 and 1982, NEMA grew from 100 members to almost 800 and began many of the programs and events that continue today. A few years ago, for the issue of New England Museums Now celebrating NEMA's 100th anniversary, I had the pleasure of interviewing Pat. I recall that she had some sage advice for folks entering the field today. Have fun, she said. Be creative. You have a wonderful opportunity to let your imagination run and help other people learn. Words of wisdom indeed. Thank you, Patricia. Before we close, I'd like to thank the 2021 NEMA Fellow, Arthurina Fears, Curator of Education and Programs at the Davis Museum at Wellesley College. Arthurina has contributed greatly to NEMA's thought leadership over this past year. And welcome to the 2022 NEMA Fellow, Monica Andrews, Public Programs Associate at the Shelburne Museum in Vermont. In addition to helping us in the coming year with articles and insights, Monica is serving as a co-chair of our Young and Emerging Professionals group. Monica, we appreciate your contributions as well. At this time, I'd like to recognize the contributions and leadership of the NEMA board, an incredible group of people who stand at the front of an incredible organization. And once more, I'd like to thank all of our conference sponsors for their leadership and generosity. I also want to acknowledge and thank your conference ambassadors who volunteered their time to make sure our speakers were supported and our technology was flawless. So thank you all. And I'd like to close out our annual meeting by recognizing and thanking the NEMA staff, Heather Riggs, our Director of Administration, Meg Winnicates, Director of Engagement, and Director of Membership and Development, Scarlett Hoey. Heather, Meg, and Scarlett are the backbone of NEMA and the engineers of the annual conference. And I'm personally very grateful to be part of your team. And that brings our virtual annual meeting and conference to a close. I look forward to seeing you in person next November in Springfield, Massachusetts for the 104th Annual NEMA Conference. Thank you for being with us, everyone, and enjoy the next couple of sessions that we've got this afternoon. Take care.
Thanks, Dan.
Dan, you ended early.
Could all chat if you wanted.
No, I'm going to close out. So I see everybody hopefully in person sometime soon.
Okay. Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
So long.
Bye for now.